And they had never even heard of it. That was the only thing I had, because these people were throwing out numbers like, I think we ought to use 6, 12, 12 on that. Somebody else would say, no, Lee, we're going to just 15, not 15. And so I thought that was kind of cool. I had no idea what these numbers were. So I said, well, I use 11, 12, 16.
Oh.
I learned to shut my mouth, please. But numbers, and I finally figured out what horticulture was. It was a lot different than I thought it was, and a lot more scientific. And I've gone through all of that, and I still go back to working with the soil. And here in Georgia, we have clay. It was really designed that we become a huge pottery and make clay pots, not try to grow things in clay. So the compost pile becomes everything. You mix it with the clay holds moisture, the compost pile provides the organic materials and the worms and the bugs that are going to work that clay soil. You mix the two together, and in about 2 or 3 years, you have some fine growing soil. The first year, you have something called beginner's luck. It doesn't, it's going to work for you, but it won't be like it is the next year. You work the soil and work some more organic material into it. Anything that is organic. Go to the store, buy anything, mix it with the clay. You don't grow in that stuff. You mix it and mix it and mix it till you get the right concentration of air and nutrients in the soil. And then you can add nutrients, but please don't add a lot of chemicals. I don't use very many chemicals at all in my fertilizer. Every now and then, when I see somebody really suffering out in the garden, I will throw a little 10, 10, 10 on them just to say, either you're going to die or you're going to grow. You're not going to just sit there. And they usually die or grow. And if they die, cut them down, dig them up, put them in my compost pile, because I know then they'll be supporting somebody else that will grow in the yard. So it's just a process, and you never want to get through with it. You never want to get through gardening. This is a process, and it's like a journey. It's like going on a trip. If you go on a trip and you make a 5-city stop, you don't just sit at the first city saying, I can't wait till I get to the end. I want to get to the end. You enjoy each stop you make along the way. So I go from one kind of thing to another. And somebody said one time, what is your favorite plant? It's the one I'm looking at the moment. It's just whatever I'm dealing with. Now there are times that my vegetable garden is king. I'll spend all my time on it. Other times when the daffodils are in bloom, daffodils are my favorite. And then along comes the forsythia, and that's my favorite. And right now it's everything. Oh my goodness, everything in my garden is just blooming and luscious. And that freezing cold winter that I just raised Cain about and said, wow, I have loved, because it set buds. Have you ever seen trees and flowers with more flowers than you saw this year? Keep looking. You're going to see. The dogwood flowers are just covered. Just covered. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was so cold. My native azaleas. Oh, my buckeyes. I had buckeyes. I could have given everybody in here a buckeye tree. I grow buckeyes only because my trees produce them. And there's something about throwing away a seed, it just isn't going to happen. And so I keep growing them. And I've got thousands of buckeyes. But they're in bloom right now, and they're beautiful trees. And nobody even knows about them. They just say, well, I think we got one down there in the woods somewhere. They're beautiful trees that never require anything but you to just go out and look at them and enjoy them. I never fertilize them, I never do anything. And they just keep blooming and growing and giving me so much in my garden. Well, I know that 90% of the people in here are men, therefore, or more. Therefore, you're interested in tomatoes, aren't you? Everybody wants to grow. You don't like tomatoes. Oh, good. I've got a chance. I grow tomatoes and peppers.
They don't like me.
They don't like you. Well, tell you about tomatoes. One thing is if you don't have the soil and don't have the energy to work the ground, try growing them in large containers. Now I'm not talking about a 5-gallon pot. I'm talking about bigger. Nurseries sometimes have tree pots, 15-gallon pots and above. If you take some of these and you get your soil in there and mainly compost, not much clay, because clay will stop it up and you'll get too much water, and potting soil and just mix it and get it nice and loose and loamy and organic, you can grow enough tomatoes on one tomato plant to probably give you the tomatoes you want. Matter of fact, the fewer tomato plants you grow, the more tomatoes you're going to have, because you need to tend them. You need to look after them. You need to make sure the bugs don't get them, that if they get a fungus, you spray for it, that you take care of the plant, that you take care of the water needs of it, the fertility needs of it. You can go out there and plant 50 plants and not care for them, and you'll be lucky to get one good tomato off of it. Now, I grow a lot of heirlooms, and let me tell you about, we see a lot about heirloom plants. Heirloom plants are those plants that were traded around in the 1800s, even the 1700s, and they were usually traded for things. A man would get some seed, and he would parcel those seed out. He'd go up and knock on a lady's door, and he would say, "Ma'am, I'd like to have some food to eat tonight. Do you have any food to give me?" And she'd say, "Well, I'm feeding my family." He'd say, "I'll give you 10 tomato seeds for a good meal." And she'd say, "Okay." "What kind of tomatoes are they?" And he'd go, "You know, the boxcar. They're boxcar Willies." And she'd say, "Oh, and what is your name?" He'd say, "Willie." And she'd say, "Okay, Willie, if you'll give me some of those boxcar Willies, I'll fix you a meal." And she would go in and she'd fix him a meal. And she would take the tomato seeds and grow them, and then the tomatoes would come out good, and people would say, "What kind of tomato is this? This is really good." Say, "This is a boxcar Willie." And this travel, we've got Arkansas Travelers, boxcar Willies, Brandywine. What else do I have? I have a lot of them. Super Snow White. Let's see. Oh, did I bring 2 Super Snow Whites? I didn't mean to do that. And then I've got one that they sent me the seed to this year, called Grandma Climahogany.
Oh, wow.
Now, it took me a while to find Grandma Climahogany, but I found it. And it's a bright orange, huge tomato. And so, if you want to try an heirloom like that, the heirlooms have special tastes. I got Hillbilly. I'm trying to remember all of these. Radiator Charlie. I don't have Radiator Charlie this year. I usually have it, but the seed were kind of hard to find. There are places that collect these seeds, and there's 3,600 varieties of heirloom tomatoes. Some of them are strains of tomatoes, like Brandywine. There's about 6 strains of Brandywine. This is the original strain of Brandywine. I haven't gotten into the offshoot strains. But they are not tomatoes that you're going to produce a lot of tomatoes on. They're not tomatoes that you're going to, if you had a market garden, that you would grow, except for Arkansas Traveler. And got good stories on Arkansas Traveler. Doug's neighbor grows Arkansas Traveler.
AC?
Huh?
AC.
Okay. HC grows Arkansas Traveler because he wanted better boys. And I grow better boys. I mean, you've got to grow better boys if you're going to be in the business. So I grow better boys, and I said, "Well, HC," I said, "You know, you can buy a good tomato at the store. It tastes as good as Better Boy." He said, "I know, but people like Better Boys. It's a good producer." I said, "Yeah, it's a trucking tomato. You know, it holds up, and it's a good tomato." But I said, your brother bought Arkansas Traveler." He said, "Is that pink tomato?" It's a deep pink red. It's really not pink. And I said, he said, that's the one, isn't it? I said, yes. He said, well, I went over, his brother died. His brother would grow, he'd buy 100 tomato plants from me, and he would grow this whole field of tomatoes. And he was on oxygen, and he couldn't take care of those tomatoes. And so, but he died in the summer, and the place went up in weeds. And HC went out there just to see if there was anything he could salvage from it. And he kept seeing here and there these tomatoes that were a deep pink. And the plant was still going, and all the rest of the tomatoes had died. And that was Arkansas Traveler. And in Arkansas, you don't grow anything else.